Have you ever felt that deep, silent frustration of pouring your whole heart into a relationship, being the most understanding, loyal, and patient woman, only to realize that he doesn't take you seriously? That painful ache of being treated not as an irreplaceable priority, but as a convenient option, a safe harbor he can always return to, but never a treasure he fears losing? It's a wound many women carry quietly. You try harder, you adapt, you soften your boundaries, you silence your needs, afraid of being too much. You hope that your kindness and unconditional devotion will prove your worth. But instead of respect, you receive indifference. Instead of connection, you're met with ambiguity. And you ask yourself with a breaking heart, what am I doing wrong? Why isn't my love enough to make him see my value? Take a deep breath, because the truth I'm about to tell you will set you free. The problem is not your capacity to love. It's the attitude from which you love. You've been following a map that led you exactly where you didn't want to go. Because there's a secret, one powerful psychological truth that most men don't even consciously understand, but instinctively respond to. There exists a single feminine attitude, an inner stance so sovereign and magnetic that when a woman embodies it, a man cannot help but take her seriously. It awakens in him the most primal of all fears, the fear of losing her. And it is this fear, not your pleading, that compels him to recognize your worth. Today, you won't hear superficial advice. Today, we're exposing the myth of the good woman, and I'll give you the keys to a transformative new attitude. First, you'll understand why trying to please instead of commanding respect inevitably destroys the very respect you seek. Then I'll reveal the power of emotional sovereignty, the sacred posture of a woman who no longer seeks validation to affirm her feelings or her value. Next, you'll learn why your boundaries, not your sacrifices, define your true worth in his eyes. After that, we'll decode the psychology of the fear of loss, and you'll understand why a man only begins to truly appreciate you when he realizes your life does not revolve around him. And finally, I'll share a daily ritual, a way to embody this royal attitude today and stop being an option to become his priority. This isn't about manipulating a man. This is a manifesto for reclaiming your power, becoming the woman who simply must be respected. So, if you're ready to stop begging for worth and start radiating it instead, if your soul is tired of not being taken seriously, then make this moment sacred. Give this video a powerful like to anchor your intention. And above all, subscribe and activate notifications. It's your first act of taking yourself seriously on this journey. Ready? Let's begin. Since childhood, we've been sold a lie, an illusion that shaped the way we love. The myth of the good woman. We were taught that to deserve love, to be chosen, to keep a man, we must be kind, accommodating, patient, and above all, pleasant. We were programmed to believe that the road to a man's heart was paved with our endless yeses, with our ability to adapt, to not cause problems, and to be a place of peace and unconditional understanding. And many of us took on that role with almost religious devotion. We became the girlfriend who never complained, the partner who supported dreams she didn't even understand, the woman who canceled her own plans to be available, the one who swallowed her tears to avoid making a scene. We played the role of the good woman perfectly, believing that our reward would be respect, devotion, and an honored place in his life. But here's where the illusion shatters. In most cases, the reward isn't respect. It's convenience, Not devotion, but utility. Not honor, but predictability. And predictability is rarely valued. It is taken for granted. Why does this happen? Because respect does not arise from kindness. It arises from integrity. A man does not truly respect the woman who lives to please him. He respects the woman who pleases herself first. He doesn't value the one who always agrees, but the one whose clear standards challenge him to rise. Imagine Elena's story. She had been with a man for 2 years, and she loved him above all else. She prided herself on being the perfect girlfriend. She never disagreed, always supported his decisions, even when she didn't believe in them. Her favorite phrase was, "Whatever you want, darling." Her entire life revolved around making him happy, believing that her devotion was proof of love. But slowly, things began to change. He stopped including her in important decisions. He began making choices that affected them both, without even asking her. And when she finally dared to speak up, he answered with a condescending smile. One day, she gathered her courage and asked, "Why do I feel like you don't respect me?" His answer was like a knife, but it woke her up. He said, "I love you. You're the kindest person I know. But you always agree with everything. Sometimes I don't even need to ask your opinion because I already know your answer." And in that moment, Elena understood. In trying to be the good woman, she had erased herself from the relationship. She had become so pleasant, so predictable, that she had lost her own weight in the relationship. She had become an echo, not a voice. This is the silent trap of always wanting to please. When you never say no, your yes loses its value. When you never disagree, your consent loses its meaning. When you never set boundaries, he assumes you don't have any. And this isn't malice on his part, it's human nature. When there is no counterpart, there can be no polarity. Attraction and respect need two whole, independent beings to meet consciously. But when you dissolve into him, when you become merely an extension of his desires and opinions, that polarity collapses. You cease to be the fascinating woman he once met and become a convenient appendage to his life. And convenience, my dear soul, is the quiet death of respect and admiration. That's why the first step on this path toward authentic feminine power is unlearning the myth of the good woman. It's not about becoming quarrelsome or cold. It's about allowing yourself to be real. It's about realizing that your worth does not depend on how pleasant you are for him, but on how loyal you remain to yourself. Your opinions matter. Your needs are legitimate. Your no is as sacred as your yes. And when you begin to live this truth, something extraordinary happens. Your entire aura shifts. You no longer come across as someone seeking approval. You radiate that you already have it, your own. And now that we've exposed the illusion that kept you trapped in silent devaluation, we're ready to lay the first cornerstone of true inner strength, emotional sovereignty. The next step in building this irresistible, dignified attitude is one of the most radical acts of inner power, reclaiming your emotional sovereignty. What does that mean? It means you stop seeking permission, approval, or agreement from him to feel what you feel. It means you become the sole and absolute authority over your own emotional world. Most women, often without realizing it, have been conditioned to externalize their emotional barometer. They feel a spark of anger, but before acknowledging it, they glance to the side. Will he accept it? Will he get angry? Is it too much? They feel sadness, but suppress it, so they won't appear dramatic or needy. They feel joy over a personal success, but downplay it, afraid it might hurt his ego. They live in a constant state of self-censorship, adjusting their emotional truth to what they believe he wants or can handle. But this subtle act of self-denial, my dear soul, is a massive loss of power.
The woman who embodies emotional sovereignty lives by an entirely different principle. She knows that her feelings belong to her. They are valid simply because they exist. They require no external permission to be real. When she's angry because a boundary has been crossed, she doesn't apologize for her anger. She expresses it calmly and clearly. When she's sad, she allows herself to sit with that sadness without shame. When she's radiant with joy, she celebrates her success without shrinking to make others comfortable. She doesn't need him to understand her emotions. She understands them herself. She honors them. Her stance is not confrontational. It is undeniably authentic. Her energy says, "This is what I feel. This is my truth. You may agree or not, understand or not, but you cannot devalue it because it belongs to me." Imagine this scene. Laura is at dinner with her partner. He makes a sarcastic remark about one of her dreams in front of his friends, belittling it. In the past, Laura would have smiled awkwardly, swallowing her pain to avoid ruining the evening. But the Laura who practices emotional sovereignty no longer does that. She doesn't raise her voice. She doesn't create a scene. She simply looks at him. Her smile fades. And with calm, steady poise, she says, "That comment was unnecessary, and it hurt me. We'll talk about it later." Then she turns her gaze back to her meal. What just happened in this man's mind? He hit a wall, not a wall of anger, but a wall of self-respect. He saw a woman who will not sacrifice her dignity for the illusion of harmony. He saw a woman who is the master of her emotions, unafraid to protect her inner space. And this vision, this quiet demonstration of composure, is infinitely more powerful than hours of arguments or tears. When a woman stops asking for permission to feel, something profound shifts in a man's perception. He no longer sees her as an emotional child to be managed or soothed, but as an equal force to be reckoned with. He realizes that his actions carry emotional consequences and that she will not silently endure them. This doesn't create distance, it creates magnetic tension. It compels him to be more conscious, more attentive, more respectful. He realizes he's dealing with a woman who will never abandon herself. And for any man with even a trace of maturity, that is deeply attractive. Because what cannot be controlled, one begins to admire, and what one admires, one begins to fear losing. To cultivate this emotional sovereignty, you must master the art of self-validation. When you feel an uncomfortable emotion, don't rush to seek validation from the outside, and give yourself what you are yearning for. When you're angry, tell yourself, "I have every right to feel this way. My anger is justified." When you're sad, allow yourself to cry and whisper, "It's okay not to be okay. I honor my sadness." This kind of inner dialogue is the foundation of an unshakable emotional core, one so stable that external opinions no longer have the power to destabilize you. And when you're ready to stop asking for permission and instead become the queen of your own emotional universe, seal this promise right now. Go to the comments and write this powerful declaration. My feelings belong to me. I don't need your approval to feel. With this sentence, you proclaim your emotional independence and join a community of women reclaiming their sovereignty. Now that you've learned to be the ultimate authority over your own emotions, you're ready for the next pillar of this royal attitude, setting your boundaries. If emotional sovereignty is your inner declaration of independence, then your boundaries are the visible expression, the sacred borders of your inner realm. They mark where the world ends and where you begin. They tell every man, every person, exactly where his desires end and your self-respect begins. And here lies one of the most overlooked truths about relationships.
A man does not measure your worth by how much love you give or how many sacrifices you make for him. On a deep instinctive level, he measures your worth by the clarity and consistency of your boundaries. Your boundaries are, in essence, the price you place on your peace, your time, and your energy. If you don't define them, you send an unconscious message: my peace has no value, my time is free, my energy is limitless. And in human dynamics, what costs nothing is rarely appreciated. Many women confuse boundaries with conflict or selfishness. They believe that true love means having no boundaries, a complete fusion where everything is allowed and everything is forgiven. Or worse, they confuse boundaries with requests. They live in a cycle of pleading and hoping. Could you please not do that again? Would you mind letting me know when you'll be home? These phrases become the soundtrack of their relationship. But pleading, my dear soul, comes from a position of inferiority. It implies that the power lies with him, that you depend on his generosity to have your needs met. A boundary, on the other hand, is not a request. It is a statement of what you will do. It's not about controlling him. It's about governing yourself. Let me give you an example that changes everything. Imagine a man who often cancels plans at the last minute. The woman who operates from requests might say, "That really hurts me. Please try not to do it again." And then she waits, hoping that he will change. But the woman who lives with boundaries does not beg. She simply draws a line. The next time he cancels, she doesn't argue or complain. She calmly says, "I understand something came up, but my time is valuable. If you can't commit next time, I'd rather not make plans." And then she continues with her evening, peacefully. And most importantly, she stays consistent. If he is unclear again, she declines the invitation without resentment. What has she done? She didn't ask him to change. She showed him the consequence of his behavior. Through action, not appeal, she communicated that access to her time and presence has conditions. And that message echoes in the male psyche like thunder. Setting a boundary is a silent act of power. It means refusing an invitation that doesn't feel right, even if you fear his reaction. It means ending a phone call when he raises his voice. It means leaving a place where your energy feels disrespected. It means no longer being emotionally available for someone who only seeks you out for convenience. Every time you set a boundary, you send two powerful messages, one to him and one to yourself. I am worth it. My peace is non-negotiable. My energy is a sacred gift. And when a man encounters such sacred boundaries, one of two things happens. The immature man, who seeks control or compliance, will grow frustrated and likely withdraw. And that, my dear, is a blessing. It is the natural filter that protects you from relationships that would only drain and diminish you. But the conscious man, a man of real substance, will feel something entirely different: respect, admiration, and an even deeper attraction. Because he realizes he's not dealing with a girl who lives to please, but with a woman who knows exactly who she is and what she will never tolerate. Your boundaries are not walls that keep love away. They're the walls that protect your inner kingdom. And only a true king is drawn to a well-protected kingdom. Stop asking him to appreciate you. Show him, through your boundaries, how deeply you appreciate yourself. Because your actions will always speak louder than your requests. To anchor this truth within you, go to the comments and write this declaration: my boundaries are not a request. They are the map of my self-respect. When you write this, you strengthen your own foundation and contribute to a collective resonance, a field of women remembering the immense power of their sacred boundaries.
Now that you've learned to demand respect through your boundaries, you are ready to understand the final psychological principle, the one that not only commands respect, but also awakens a man's deepest fear of losing you. In this final part, we'll decode the psychology of loss risk, the invisible mechanism that transforms his comfort into urgency, his indifference into genuine interest, and his security into a healthy sense of fear. This mechanism is triggered not through threats, games, or ultimatums, but in that silent moment when a man realizes deeply and viscerally that your happiness, your fulfillment, and your very world do not revolve around him. That even if he were to disappear tomorrow, your life, though it might ache, would still remain rich, alive, and full of meaning. And that realization changes everything. From an evolutionary and psychological standpoint, human beings are wired to value what they believe they could lose. What is constant, safe, and guaranteed is often taken for granted. It's the law of emotional scarcity. As long as a man feels certain of you, that you will always be there, that your happiness depends on his attention, he stays comfortably asleep in his certainty. He may care for you, yes, but he won't fight for you. He won't invest. He won't keep winning you over. Why should he? There is no risk. He receives all the rewards of your presence without paying the price of effort or devotion. But the moment that certainty begins to fade, when he senses, even slightly, that your world doesn't stop spinning without him, his entire system awakens. Everything we've built so far, your emotional sovereignty, your sacred boundaries, these are not isolated traits. They are living, breathing proofs that you are the son of your own universe. When he sees you chasing your passions without waiting for his approval, when he watches you enjoy solitude as a luxury, not a punishment, when he notices that your friendships, your creativity, and your joy exist independently of his mood, he finally understands you're not a satellite orbiting his existence. You are a planet, complete, radiant, self-sustaining. And if he wishes to enter your orbit, he must bring his own light, not be a black hole that only consumes. I remember the story of Marcus, a man who once confessed that the woman who changed him most was the one who never made him feel that she needed him. He said, at first, it was confusing. Other women made me the center of their universe, and while that was flattering, it soon became a burden. I felt responsible for their happiness, but she was different. She had her work, her passions, her circle. Sometimes I'd ask to see her, and she'd say, without hesitation, I can't tonight. It's my evening for myself. She didn't say it to punish me. It was simply her truth. And each time she did, I didn't feel anger. I felt something else. A sting of admiration and an irrational fear. The fear that her world was so complete. Perhaps I wasn't as irreplaceable as I thought. And it was precisely that fear that drove him to become irreplaceable. He began to try harder, plan better, show up with intention, not because she demanded it, but because she inspired it. That's the secret. The fear of losing you does not arise from control. It arises from inspiration. A man doesn't fear the woman who says, if you leave, I'll die. He fears the woman who silently shows, if you leave, I will continue to shine. And this attitude not only commands respect, but also frees him. It releases him from the impossible duty of being your sole source of happiness. It allows the relationship to breathe, to thrive in admiration rather than dependence. He no longer sees you as someone he must protect, but as someone he must earn every day. So the question is no longer, how do I make him see my worth? The real question is, how do I show myself that I already have worth? Stop trying to be indispensable to him. Become indispensable to yourself.
Fill your life with so much passion, meaning, and joy that his presence is a beautiful addition, but never the condition for your fulfillment. When you embody this energy, the risk of losing you becomes real for him, not because you make him believe it, but because it's the truth. And when a man truly realizes that he could lose a woman of real value, he is faced with a choice. Either he steps forward, or he steps aside and watches you continue to shine from afar. In both cases, you win. Now that you understand the psychology of value through the risk of loss, you are ready for the final step. In this last part, I'll share with you a daily ritual, a practical tool to help you embody this royal attitude starting today. A way to stop being an option in other people's lives and become a non-negotiable priority in your own. We've dissected the psychology, decoded the mechanisms, and understood the theory. But true transformation doesn't happen through understanding, it happens through embodiment. When philosophy becomes habit, when knowledge turns into daily practice, that's when you become unshakable. That is why this final key is not another concept, it is a practice, a promise to yourself. A method to reprogram your nervous system, rebuild your self-esteem, and radiate the frequency of a woman who takes herself seriously. This ritual is called the Mirror Decree and the Sacred Calendar. Its purpose is simple: to stop being an option in others' lives and become the highest priority in your own. Part 1. The Mirror Decree, Morning Reprogramming. Every morning, before you pick up your phone, before the noise of the world reaches you, go to a mirror. Look into your own eyes. Do not search for flaws. Do not judge. Simply connect with the woman staring back at you. Take 3 deep breaths. Then, clearly and firmly, even if it feels unfamiliar, say aloud, "I am the sovereign of my world. My feelings are valid. My boundaries are sacred. My peace is a priority. I do not beg for love, respect, or attention. I command them through my example. Today, I choose myself." Repeat this decree 3 times. Feel every word resonate in your chest. This simple act is conscious self-hypnosis. It interrupts decades of conditioning that told you your worth lies outside of you and installs a new program built on self-respect. When you meet your own gaze, you forge a neurological and emotional connection between your image and your power. Part 2. The Sacred Calendar, Daily Action. After the Mirror Decree, take your calendar or a sheet of paper. Before you think of anyone else, before you check your messages, do one sacred thing. Schedule an appointment with yourself for that day. It doesn't have to be big. 15 minutes of reading, a walk without purpose, an hour of dance, 20 minutes of coffee in silence. But once it's written down, that time becomes non-negotiable, as important as a meeting with your boss or a doctor's visit. Why is this so powerful? Because through consistent action, you teach your brain that your time and your presence with yourself are valuable, worthy of protection. At first, it may feel uncomfortable. You might even feel guilty. But day after day, something will shift. When he calls you at the last minute asking to meet during your sacred time, you'll calmly say, "I'd love to, but I already have plans." Those plans are you. And every time you honor that commitment, your self-worth deepens. Your energy changes. You stop radiating neediness and start radiating abundance. He will feel it. Everyone around you will feel it. They'll notice that your life has a center, and that center is not him. And it is exactly this perception that plants the seed of deep respect, and yes, the fear of losing you. This ritual isn't about making him appreciate you more. It's about making you appreciate yourself so deeply that his approval loses its power. And paradoxically, it's precisely this independence that makes him value you more than ever before. You stop being the woman who rearranges her day around his call and become the woman whose day is a masterpiece she creates for herself, in which he may be an honored guest, but never the architect. To anchor this ritual as a pillar of your new life, go one last time to the comments and write this promise to yourself. My most important appointment is with myself.
I am my priority. With these words, you don't just commit to yourself, you become an inspiration to thousands of women ready to do the same. And so, my dear soul, we've reached the end of our journey. Today, you didn't learn a trick. You received the keys to an attitude, one that can change your life, the way men see you, and most importantly, the way you see yourself. You've dismantled the illusion of the good woman, realizing that constant pleasing breeds comfort, not respect. You've reclaimed your throne of emotional sovereignty, understanding that your feelings need no permission to exist. You've discovered the sacred power of boundaries, the true measure of self-worth. You've decoded the psychology of the risk of loss and understood that a man only fears losing you when your world no longer revolves around him. And now you hold in your hands a daily ritual, a practice to make yourself the non-negotiable priority of your own life. This attitude is not a mask. It is the purest expression of the woman who has found herself again. The calm of someone who has nothing left to prove. The clarity of one who knows what she will never tolerate again. The fullness of a soul who has made her own company sacred. It is quite simply the unmistakable energy of a woman who takes herself seriously. When you embody this energy, you no longer compete for male attention. You ascend into an entirely different league, that of women who, by their very presence, inspire men to rise to their level. You will no longer be an option among many. You will be the conscious choice for the man who is evolved enough to recognize your worth. And to those who are not, you become the natural filter. In both cases, you win. Never forget this truth. The respect you seek will never be begged for, it will be radiated. The value you long for will never be granted, it will be embodied. And the fear of losing you will only arise in him once you have no fear of being without him. That is the paradox. That is the key. That is the only attitude that will make him take you seriously, deeply, irrevocably, forever. To seal this journey, make your final declaration to the universe. I do not ask for my worth. I embody it. My attitude is my power. Write it, feel it, and go out into the world not to seek respect, but to be respect in motion.